Great. Hello. Welcome. Yes, here I am. Today is Monday, July the 6th, 2020. This is a very exciting week. So the past 2 weeks I've been reading nothing but Berenstain Bears books. And still love the Berenstain Bears, but I'm a little Berenstain Beared out for the moment. And so this week is going to be a whole different week. Not Berenstain Bears book, although there is at least one book, just one book, with a bear in it. The first book, today's book. My birthday is coming up on Saturday. I'm going to be a year older. And so this week I'm going to read a whole bunch of stories that I just like. The Friday's book will be a happy birthday book, a special birthday book. And I will say no more about that. So let's get to today's story, which is by Bill Peet. And this is one of my favorite books. And you can tell it's one of my favorite books because it's kind of falling apart. It's well loved, as some librarians might say. It's called Big Bad Bruce. And I've been wanting to read this one for a while. And now I get my chance. So hopefully the book won't fall apart on me. Called Big Bad Bruce by Bill Peet, and it's got everything. It really has a lot of different things, and it's very good writing too. Bill Peet has another book called something about a pig. I'll remember one of these days. Okay, here we go. Big Bad Bruce. Forever Green Forest was a quiet, peaceful place until Bruce, a great shaggy brute of a bear, came wandering up out of a canyon one day. A bear of such size was enough to frighten anyone, and the smaller creatures who lived there kept a sharp eye on Bruce in case he might give them trouble. The other book I was thinking of, by the way, was Chester the Worldly Pig. Maybe I'll do that next week. That's a big story. But anyway, here's Bruce. He's coming along. He looks pretty goofy, but the animals are weary. They're weary of him, saying he might cause trouble. As long as Bruce was busy rooting around under boulders and logs, searching for a feast of beetles and grubs, there was no need to worry. But when the big fellow was feeling frisky and ready for fun, it was time to beware of the bear. What Bruce called fun was to scare the wits out of everyone. So usually he's eating and having a good time, minding his own business, but when he's bored and wants to have fun, he's not a very nice bear. Then he becomes Big Bad Bruce. The most fun of all for Bruce was rock tumbling. There were lots of rocks in Forever Green Forest, great jumbles of them. With a swipe of a paw, the bear sent them tumbling down the steep slopes, 3 and 4 at a time. The tumbling rocks shattered logs and flattened the bushes and brush, leaving no place for the rabbits and quail to hide. So they took off in a panic to go leaping and dodging and flying pell-mell in every direction. So he'd throw these big rocks and scare all the other animals. And so they're not really fond of him. They're like, come on, Bruce, be nice. Once he had them all on the run, Bruce went rolling around on the ground, exploding into great roaring, snorting fits of laughter. That's how I think Bruce laughs. Let me do that again. As long as the bear lived in Forever Green Forest, it would never be peaceful and quiet again. And for all anyone could see, he had come there to stay. Then one afternoon, Bruce made an awful mistake. A terrible blunder. He came across a huge boulder resting on a bluff and decided to give it a ride. This is what we call foreshadowing. It's telling you, don't throw that big rock, Bruce. You're gonna regret it. With a mighty heave, he sent the boulder tumbling down a steep slope, flumpity, blumpity, wumpity, wump, smashing pine trees and aspens to splinters and leaving deep dents in the ground as it went. So far it's normal for him. That's the biggest rock he's probably ever thrown. But where's this rock gonna land, you're asking? Let's find out. In one last big bounce, it landed kerplump in a berry patch, just missing an old woman and her cat by a whisker. It was Roxy, a crafty little witch who was out picking blueberries with her cat, Clinker. "Where Where in blazes did you come from? She shrieked, giving the boulder a vicious kick. How did you get here? Who sent you? Just then, a raucous roar of laughter echoed through the pines, and in a twinkle, Roxy caught sight of the bear on the bluff. So that's who, she cried, and in a fury, she went off storming up the slope to face the bear. And so here we go. Bruce the bear is going to be come face to face with his destiny really shortly. That makes it sound very dramatic, doesn't it? You big lummox, she exploded. You big bumbling brute. That rock could have squashed us to smithereens, and you think it's funny. Chortled Bruce. Look, I'm doing that right. Look at those words. Ho, ho, har, hor, har, hor, hor. Okay. The bear had never seen anything half so funny as the frantic little woman with the wild flying hair. Laugh while you can, warned the witch, but just wait. I'll have the last laugh, Mr. Bear. Oh, indeed I will. Then she took off like a shot to go streaking down the slope so fast her cat could barely keep pace. And when the witch reached her cabin at the edge of the forest, she hatched a plot. So she's got an idea. First he was laughing at her and she was upset. Now she's like, I'm not mad anymore. Well, she's still mad. Now she's going to get even. And so she hatched a plot. She got a good idea. I'll make a pie, she decided. A very special old pie for old Mr. Bear. In a flicker of an eye, she made the pie crust. And in a trizzle of a trice, she whipped up a filling of blueberries and honey. Now for the trickery, she muttered. I didn't really mutter it, but I guess she muttered it. Flipping through her magical cookbook to one of her favorite recipes. Then, reading the directions carefully, Roxy began to measure. 1 drop of dwindling, 2 blurps of belittling, a smidgen of minikin, a half teaspoon of twerp, a shrift of shortening, and 1 pinch of kaput. Ought to do it. The instant the pie was baked a golden brown and ready to serve, Roxy scurried out the door with it back to the forest. Then, keeping an eye out for the bear, she crept along through the shadows as slinky as a fox. Here she is, making her pie, and now she's going to deliver the pie to the forest, hoping that the bear will eat it. When she reached a small clearing near the spot where she had met the bear, there was not a sign of him, but she could hear him snorting and snooting around in the brush somewhere up the slope. Quickly, she picked out a pine stump, jerked off her apron, and flung it on top, then put the pie on it. The table's all set, she whispered. Now skit, scat, kitty cat, let's get lost. And they ducked down behind a log, just a hop, skip, and a jump from the stump to wait for old Mr. Bear. All right, so there they are. They're sneaking there, and they're just going to sit there and wait for the bear. They didn't wait long. Pretty soon, a whiffle of a breeze sent the sweet aroma of blueberries and honey drifting up to Bruce, and he followed his snuffling nose straight to the stump, snatched up the pie in his paws, and in one chomp and a slurp, the pie was gone. Ho-ho! Cackled Roxy, popping up from behind a log. I tricked you, Mr. Bear! Ho-ho-ho! Did I ever? Bruce didn't like being surprised, and he let go with an angry "Grrr." Growl yourself, Roxy shot back. You don't scare me. Just watch out you don't get pecked to bits by a quail or stomped on by a rabbit. Snurf, snorted the grumpy bear, and he wheeled around and lumbered off into the underbrush. So he doesn't know what she's talking about. Maybe because he's a bear and he doesn't speak English. But let's see. I'm going to read before I show you the picture. Bruce hadn't gone very far when he began feeling drowsy. So drowsy he could hardly keep his eyes open. So he flopped down against a tree trunk to rest, and in the time it takes for one big yawn, he dropped off to sleep. While the bear slept, he gradually began to grow smaller. Inch by inch and little by little, Bruce dwindled away. He kept shrinking and shriveling until he was the size of a possum. And still he kept shrinking. When the diminishing spell was finally finished, the bear had dwindled all the way down to about the size of a chipmunk. So that's what he was when he started out, when he went to sleep. And now he is pretty small. He keeps dwindling down and getting smaller and smaller. Bruce was awakened by a sharp peck on the head, and with an angry growl that came out more like a squeak, he reared up all ready to fight. But when he found himself nose to beak with a giant of a quail, Bruce backed off to gape in amazement. Then, as the bewildered bear looked around, he was surprised by 3 more giant quail and a pair of huge rabbits. So before, he probably would have just grabbed a rock or, scared him away with his big growl. Now it sounds like a little cat's meow. So he's not going to scare anybody, him being the small size that he is. The rabbits and quail had recognized Bruce, and as they closed into attack, he quickly turned tail and went plowing headlong into a tangle of brambles. But there was no chance of outrunning the rabbits and quail in the thicket. They were close on his heels, pecking and stomping the bear with a fury. Bruce didn't dare to try to fight back. He kept ducking and dodging his way through the brambles, frantically searching for some place to hide, a gopher hole, a flat rock to squeeze under, any place at all. So they are attacking him because now they're like, hey, you're my size now, and now I can hurt you. And they want to hurt him because he's not been very nice to them. At last he stumbled into a forest of cattails at the edge of a creek, and in a flying leap flung himself into the water, kersploosh, and bobbed up well beyond the reach of the rabbits and the quail. So at least he's safe now, but who knows how safe he is. Then, kicking and thrashing with all 4 feet, Bruce headed for the opposite bank, which was a long swim for a tiny bear. About halfway across, a sudden swirl of current sent him spinning around and around, upside down and under. So now he's got to deal with this fast-flowing river. Here's adventure on its way. The frog doesn't seem to mind. The frog's like, hey, you need some help? What could the frog do? Bruce was, there's the frog in the water. Maybe he's going to help him. Bruce was about to be swept down the twisting creek and away forever when he grabbed onto a rock and managed to haul himself up out of the water. Then the bruised and bedraggled bear sprawled out on his belly, choking and wheezing and snorting out bubbles until at last he was able to breathe. For a long time, he lay there staring into the swirling stream, trying to figure out what could have happened to make him so small. He wondered if it might be something he ate. Suddenly, he remembered the blueberry pie and the fierce little woman who had warned him, watch out you don't get pecked to bits by a quail or stomped on by a rabbit. All at once, Bruce realized he had been tricked by a crafty old witch, shrunk by a magic spell. That's what I told you, man. This book's got everything. A little bit of everything. By this time, the sun had gone down and deep shadows had crept across the creek. A chilly breeze rippled the dark water, and the soggy wet bear shriveled and shook from the cold and also from the fright. Bruce knew that the night hunters were already out on the prowl, and now he was fair game. The jittery bear sat up on his haunches, looking all about in the darkness for any sign of danger. He looked everywhere but up, or he would have seen the frowsy old owl peering down on him from a tree limb above. The fuzzy little brown thing on the rock, here he is, look how tiny he is. The fuzzy little thing on the rock was a choice tidbit for the owl, and he was just about to swoop down when all of a sudden, what's going to happen? A screechy voice split the air. Mr. Bear! Mr. Bear! With a terrified hoot, the owl sailed off into the night, leaving the bear to face another kind of danger. In desperation, Bruce scrunched himself up into a ball, hoping the witch would mistake him for a part of the rock. But there was no chance of fooling old Roxy, and holding her lantern out over the creek, she spotted the bear in a flash. Ho-ho! She cackled. There you are, Mr. Bear! No bigger than a minute! Quick, quick, Clinker! Go fetch him! Skip, scat! All right. Now it doesn't look good. It's not looking good. It's going to have a happy ending, I promise. Before the bear could blink an eye, the cat snatched him off the rock by the scruff of the neck and leaped lightly back to the bank. Good cat, cried Roxy. Now go home. Home we go. But easy does it. This bear's had a big, long day. As Bruce was carried along through the dark of the forest, he didn't dare put up a struggle. Besides, he was too weary to even lift a paw, and much too scared. He was sure the crafty old witch had planned to fix him for good. If she could shrink him down to a runt of a thing, she could turn him into a tadpole or into a flea, or maybe even make him disappear altogether. So he's like, all right, witch, you got me. I'm just going to hope that you're nice. But to the bear's surprise, the witch turned out to be a kindly old woman, as gentle as could be, just as long as she kept her temper. Roxy loved flowers and birds and animals, especially small animals, and she soon grew very fond of the tiny bear, so she decided to keep him that way. And here he is sharing the milk with a cat. Oh, that's nice. Clinker the cat also took a liking to the bear. They ate out of the same bowl and slept in the same corner together under the kitchen stove. So there we go, they're friends now. And here is the last page. Little bears have short memories, and in a few days, Bruce forgot all about ever being a giant of a bear. For all he knew, Roxy's flower garden was a beautiful leafy green forest with plenty of room to roam. Whenever the tiny bear was feeling frisky and ready for fun, he flipped pebbles around as if they were boulders just to scare the wits out of the grasshoppers, the beetles, and the caterpillars. From a bug's eye view, Bruce was a great, big, hairy, scary, horrible brute of a beast. So he's still scaring. That's why it's a happy ending. It's a happy ending because it's a mixed bag of an ending, to be honest with you, I think, is how I feel. Because here we go. Wow, Paige, get with it. He's happy to live. He's going to live happily ever after with Roxy because she's going to look after him because she likes small animals, and he has a new friend in Clinker. So that's the happy part. But the part that I'm not so sure about is he hasn't really changed, has he? He's still, at the beginning, he was happy to scare all the other animals, the quail and the rabbits and the other birds and things. And now he can't scare bigger animals, but he's still scaring insects. Maybe Bill Pete is saying insects don't really matter as much as other animals. And Bruce can scare them, and that's not really that bad because he's having fun and you can scare insects. Maybe I'm overthinking it. That's probably what it is. Okay, Big Bad Bruce by Bill Pete. Tomorrow, a new story. Bye.